Hey everybody, my name is Gerry, I'm from Walt and I, and this is the second time I'm going to try and record this particular video. Now I'm speaking particularly to my guest who joined me on the wildlife photography workshop recently in Kenya. The previous time I got about 25 minutes into this particular video and then something crashed and it disappeared. So I stepped away because sense of humor, and now I have coffee and we're going to try this again. So this is not a tutorial as such. What I'm going to be showing you is the Nik collection of filters, what they do, and I'm going to give you maybe some nuggets here and there of what you could use, but just for you to get an understanding of what it is and what it does. Now, let's jump into here. So this is the Lightroom interface, and over here I've got the same image inside of Photoshop. Now, the thing to understand here is when you install Nik filters, it plugs into both Photoshop and Lightroom. I personally prefer to use it inside of Photoshop because I can layer it up and you can blend it afterwards, which gives you a little bit more control. The difference is if I use it inside of Lightroom, and I'll show you now, it creates another version of your image with the new Nik changes. Now, it's not a problem, but it can get confusing down the line, and I'll show you later on. The reason that I prefer it inside Photoshop is I can run all of it in one and then save one image. So go straight in. Inside of Photoshop, where you would find your filters once you've installed it, is Filter, Nik Collection. Okay, I've got other stuff installed here for a later time, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different filters that you get when you purchase Nik. It's not a subscription, it's a once-off payment. I've got nothing to do with them, I just think it's really cool filters. Now, what they do, analog effects is kind of old school. It gives you the scratches and the look of an old cameras. Like you can double reflections and stuff. It's more creative than it is for us for wildlife photography. Color effects, I'm going to be spending some time with you guys in here because that to me, there's 5, maybe 6 filters inside there that really works well for wildlife photography. Define is Nik's version of noise reduction. Now, it's powerful. It's really powerful. I still think Topaz denoise, AI denoise takes it, so I'm using that. But if you don't have that or you don't want to buy Topaz, this is a good option. Hdr Effects, exactly what it does. HDR, high dynamic range, blends different images together from the darks to the lights when you bracket your images. Perspective Effects is a new one. And what it does is when you shoot buildings and they kind of converge up, it helps you to straighten those lines. I used it recently for a lodge shoot. It's pretty effective. Sharpener, these two, raw and output sharpener, is exactly what it says. Now again, they are pretty good. They are really good. But to me, AI sharpener from Topaz crushes it. So I don't use these all that often. And then Silver Effects and Viveza as the last two, which I'm going to be spending time with you. Silver Effects, without a doubt, the best monochrome converter on the market as far as I'm concerned. More coffee. And then Viveza is where Nik filters kind of started from initially with viewpoint technology. So again, the ones for wildlife photography, which I reckon you'll use, Color Effects, Silver Effects, and Viveza. All right, so that's where they sit inside of Photoshop. Let me jump you back quickly over here. If you're inside of Lightroom and you've done whatever adjustments you decided to do to this image now, okay, that's horrible. Let's just do something to it there. And I now decide I want to include a Nik filter. What I would do, I would go right-click, edit in, and I would select whatever I'm going to do over here. All right, I'm not going to do that yet. I'll show you right at the end. I want to stick to Photoshop because whether you open Nik filters from Lightroom or from Photoshop, it's exactly the same thing. So let's start from here. Now, I hope you guys have watched the video on layers because that becomes important here. By default, Nik is set up. It gives you this little menu when you install the whole thing. You can launch your product straight from here. So you can go straight in to any of your plugins from here, and you've got a whole bunch of the ones that you've saved. Right, so I've got all of my favorites here, but I'll show you the main filter first. The cool thing inside of Photoshop is when I open Nik filters and I run it, it doesn't apply the changes to the bottom layer. Go and watch the video. It makes a new layer with the changes. Here we go. So filter, Nik collection, and I'm going to just dive straight into color effects. So we click there. It then opens up this new user interface, which is very Lightroom-esque in its kind of user interface, UI, right? A little bit of housekeeping. On the side here, your filter library, there's a whole bunch. What they've done is they've broken it down into different genres, but we're going to make a favorites folder for wildlife photography. On the side, I prefer to click this button at the top with a red line it gives me a before and after swipe over, which I quite enjoy. It's easiest for me to see. And then if you want to zoom at the top, here's your zoom bar. And then on the side, whichever filter you choose on the left, you get new adjustment settings and sliders on the right. Okay, so what I've done, you'll see here, some of these have little orange or yellow stars next to it. Those are my favorites. To add to a favorite, you just click on it or unclick. And now I go to favorites. So for my wildlife photography people, you guys at the workshop, these are the ones that I've mentioned that I use quite often. So let's start from the top. Brilliance and warmth. There's my settings. Now, this is basically saturation and temperature inside of Lightroom. I just find that this blend of color that they give it here is a lot better and, what's the word? More finessed than inside of Lightroom Direct. Temperature is exactly what it said. And then perceptual saturation here is very much how I describe the vibrance slider. Is it looks for colors that are lacking, pushes that up first and brings the rest. It's very powerful. So if I do that, just a small little adjustment, I go before and after. Okay, so let's now, for example, say, we'll get back to this. I want to save this. I hit OK. Now Lightroom creates Photoshop creates a new layer at the top here with my adjusted image. So watch the video on layers. I can now click here to hide the top one, or if I like what I see, I can just flatten them. Command E or Control E. And now that's my base layer. All right, pretty simple. Now you would just save as normal. Let's go back, filter, Nick collection, color effects. This opens up. So now that you know the process, let's have a look at each of these. Darken, light, and center is basically a vignette. So what you can do is you select circle or oval. So in this instance, let's go oval. Place the center. You click on there, you click to the center, and now you only have two sliders to manage. The one manages the outside of the frame, the other one manages the inside of the frame. Now, it is very similar to the radial tool within Lightroom or the new masking feature. This, I just find the blending that they do from dark through light is very good. So, yeah, straight up vignette, basically. All right, now watch this. I'm going to click on this X. It closes it, and now I can select my new filter. Glamour Glow. Now, for you guys on the workshop, you heard me speak about this. Saturation and glow. This is the default setting. If you use this for wildlife, and I'll tell you now what it does, make sure you just jack that up to 100 again, or to 0, and now glow. Now, what glow does, it's actually from the fashion industry, but there's a lot of big name photographers, especially on Instagram, who have created a kind of a style where it almost looks ethereal and very angelic, but still sharp. This is how we do it. So if I jack this glow slider up all the way, okay, you see it does that. So it softens it up, and then you can still tweak the saturation in that. Okay, so watch this now. So I'm going to leave it on 0. I'm going to give it a nice soft there. So if I now swipe over, you see what it does, right? It creates this soft haze over. It's called a Glamour Glow from the fashion industry. So now I can see that this cute little cub thing, the face is a little bit dark. What I can do, I add a filter. Click. So now it saves Glamour Glow, and I can now select a second one. So if I do dark and light and center, I can place my middle on him, and I can drop the border, and I can manage that inside. So if I swipe over, that is the cumulative effect of all the sliders together. What I would do if I were to do Glamour Glow, right? Let's save that. So now it saves both of those filters together. So I've combined them, right? So that's the final thing now. So if I hide the top layer, you can see what was underneath, all right? And here's the reason why I like this in Photoshop. I can then blend the adjustment in so that now I've only got 45% of the top one see-through. Watch the other video. And that is quite a handy little thing. All right, I'm going to delete this top layer. Stay there. Now watch this. If you have another image where you want to apply exactly the same that you've just done, you can go in Photoshop Filter and just hit the top. Now that's going to just do exactly what you did to the new image. Not advisable because the content in the image will determine what you need to do to it, but you can do that. Also, if I go straight back into Color Effects, it will, opening up, it'll start again with my last recipe, they call it. You can save this as a recipe down here, but just so you know, they start there. Okay, let's leave both of those out and carry on. Image borders I've been using for my newsletters, but if you are into prints, it's probably one of the easiest ways to do a print and to add a border onto something. Yeah, you just manage the variables, how big's the spread, how clean, how dirty, whatever the case is, and you can go from there. All right, close. Pro contrast. Now, if you've watched any videos of mine in the past, you'll know I love this slider, so much so that I think Lightroom should buy this from them, from DxO, who owns it now. So there's 3 sliders. Correct color cast. Okay, if I slide this up, I don't know if you can see what happens. In the water, the mud, and this top area, there's an orange haze that disappears when I swipe it up. Okay, so the easiest way I can explain color cast to you, imagine you're photographing a black gorilla inside a green forest. There's very bright light on the green. There is going to be a little bit of reflected green light on the black. Your brain filters it out, as does this slider. So let me just do it there. If I slide over, watch. Can you see that? It's a little bit cooler, but it still maintains the color. Very nice slider. Now, these two, the easiest way I can describe this, the correct contrast, the top one, right? It tries to punch the contrast heavily. Dark's darker, light's lighter, and the bottom one brings the light side up a bit. So, and this is literally, guys, I can't give you a number here. Slide it up visually, see what you like, up to there, and then we can see before and after. All right, so this phenomenal. I've actually sat on many trips, Farbard, Great Bear Rainforest, on the boat where we have time, and we've gone back to people's old images and we've put this just pro contrast on. It makes a world of difference. It's almost like you're lifting a veil off the images. Really, really powerful. All right, and then the last one here, I've added this recently. It's called sunlight. Now it can be, that's obviously quite harsh, but what you can do is you can mimic different types of sunlight. So the temperature, so let's say it's a cool winter's day, there's hot. So if you want to inject, it's almost like split toning in the old days, if you followed my video since then. And then you can adjust the temperature and the contrast and everything of the scene. Now this I wouldn't do, it's almost like a Glamour Glow effect as well, actually. So let's say I like that, I don't, but we do this, okay, and it pops. So now it adds the top layer with that. Now I can just turn this down a bit so that that is without and with. This is why this exact thing where you can blend into those into the layers, that's why I prefer to use it inside of Photoshop. Okay, that's color effects, short version. Now I'm going to just quickly jump to Viveza just to show you what that's about. This is where Nik Filter started. They used to give this away as a part of Nikon, a Nikon camera, and you'd get a CD in the old day with this program on. It's evolved a lot since then. Now for this particular one, I never ever use the presets on the side here, so I hide that. Okay, now I am going to, sorry, there was a little warning message there. Let's hope it was all good. So now if I just dial in this, again, very much like Lightroom, you can do contrast. It's global. So this is all global. The structure on this is pretty cool, like adding that contrasty structure to it. This is all global, as are these. Now, here is the win. You come down to here. You click on control point. You put the control point where you want to work. Now, I'm going to open this up a little bit to have my little kitty in there. Now, I'm going to come down here and click on that, this little masking button. Now, everything that is white in this image will be adjusted with whatever I do to the sliders now. Make sense? So I'm going to adjust the white areas. The whiter it is, the more the adjustment comes in. The less white it is, the less adjustment there is. So control point, I have to use the sliders underneath this. The ones on top is global. The one underneath control point is where we want to work. So take that away. And now anything I do here is isolated to those tonal values. Now you're going to have to play with this a little bit, but I've had phenomenal success and great results by doing the U point. It's called the U point technology. I'm going to do another control point. I'm going to put it in the water here. Let's make it bigger, like that. Over, if you want to see where the adjustment's going to happen, you can again, this is control point 2, click the mask. Okay, that's it, undo. And now again, I can underneath here, do the brightness just of that area. And the cool thing is here, it's not like a mask where you've cut it out. It blends it into the image. Nice one to use, especially when you start working with bright skies and clouds. Very, very handy. I'm not going to apply this. I'm going to cancel it, but that'll also then apply a new layer on top. Last one for now, filter, and this is the one, Silver Effects, monochrome conversions. Now, I am going to do a quick video again. I have done this in the past on how to do monochrome conversions inside of Lightroom. But for now, first thing first, again, very similar layout. Compare, I put my line on top, so they've done that there. And now with this, I start from the top, adding a preset. Yes, that's fine. So click on there, and then I use the arrows. And I just click through, and I'm looking for a starting point only, not final result. I need a starting point. So if we want to do high key, there's some really cool things here, especially if you've got a big color contrast in the image. It works really well. So we go through, I'm looking for a starting point. That's not bad. So again, you're just going through looking for a place to start. Okay, let's say for argument's sake, I like that. Full spectrum. Done. I can also add this as a favorite if I want to. But for now, I come over to this side here. Now, all of this global adjustments. Brightness adjustments. Think of this as exposure. But this is the overall one. Then you've broken it down. So if you take your histogram into 3 pieces, highlights, midtones, and shadows. So the highlight areas, I can work over here, look at the water. Midtones will be the majority of this image. And shadows would be the dark areas. Pretty simple, yeah? Now the dynamic brightness here then balances everything you've done, and it tries to just kind of punch it up a little bit. Contrast adjustments. Contrast slider is exactly what you know it is. Makes the darks darker and the lights lighter. These two, amplify whites and blacks, I really like. It's a very good way to get very heavy contrast in. Now remember, for a black and white, I said to some of you, you're not ever going to go, hey, look at my black and white. You want to say, look at it. So with monochrome, you have to be in your face, and these two help us to do that. So if I slide over, that would have been a normal monochrome conversion, i.e. just desaturate it, and there's some pop. Okay, soft contrast, then just balance that out again. Structure adjustments, think of this as a combination between the texture and clarity sliders within Lightroom. Okay, the big one does the same thing, okay, the main one. And then again, you can adjust the clarity or structure in just the highlight, midtones, or shadows areas. Very nice way to balance the kind of feel of it. Okay, the blacks, do you want to punch the black, specifically the black point, and add structure, and then that balances out again. Now, tonality protection, I didn't touch on this in the other ones, but what that does is if you are losing details in your blacks, you can save it. So watch the corners of my image, you lift it up, so you're saving some of that, and you're saving some of the highlights, if you want to, that with all of them. Okay, hold control points just for 1 second. Let's go to clear view. This is a new one they've put in the latest version here. It tries to just balance out the look, and it punches the contrast even more, but if we do that, it starts looking a bit, it's just not nice. Okay, haven't used this too much, not a big fan. Color filter. Now, in the old days, when we shot monochrome, you could get a filter that you screw on the front of the lens. It had a certain color, so red would, for example, block red but let blue light through. And it would give you a very interesting color result on your monochrome. See, so I can click on this, let's go with blue, and then I can increase the intensity of that filter. All right, I can check it by turning that on and off. Okay, so it adds a bit of depth to it. Let's keep it just for the purposes of now. Going up more, and then underneath film types. So if I were to shoot, specifically shoot a type of film, Kodak, Afghan, whatever, this is what you would have gotten if you were to shoot that monochrome type of film. Don't use it often, I'll leave it over there. And then at the bottom here, you can still do your histogram as per normal, your tone curves, yeah? Film grain, if you want to put film grain in, remember, we're very much on, we don't need noise and stuff. Monochrome's actually pretty good for noise. And then under finishing adjustments, you have toning. So this is pretty cool because in here, if you want to do, for example, a sepia, they have a sepia, there's a coffee version. So you can click the color that you want, and then you can balance it here to inject that tone into your images. They've got a couple of very, very nice presets. I particularly like, where's selenium, I think it's called. There. So this selenium, if I just dial that back a bit, is a very nice trick to inject just a little bit of blue into your image and just break the harshness of the black and white. Okay, let's say I'm done. I hit there. This opens a new filter, a new layer, and it puts it on top of the old one, which means I will only see the top. Watch the other video. Okay, that's not nice. Oh, I think it didn't render while we were busy. So if I do this and I pull it back, I'm now blending that adjustment in like that. Okay, let me just see why that happened. Let's go back, filter, Nick, and Silver Effects. I did see it was rendering slowly, so I think that might be the problem. So let's just do a very quick one here. Do that, do that. So I'm just doing a very quick one, so I'm going to just make sure this works. Apply. And loading, processing image, and done. All right, so the previous one was just Nick having a bit of a day. Now, again, if I wanted to create a different kind of vintage look, I would just blend out some of the monochrome and I'm left with that. That is a short look at Nick filters. Let me just show you quickly now inside of Lightroom if you want to use it here. So if I look at my Lightroom catalog, let me just mark that image. So this is the one we're working on. Now, if I wanted to do anything in here, edit in, let's do monochrome because it's the easiest, Silver Effects. This will come up. Now this you set in your details for Lightroom. Anything you've done will go into the new program. So it'll consider all your Lightroom edits as well. Now you see at the top, preparing file for editing. So it's actually now creating a new TIFF file, which it saves in the same directory as where your raw file is. Okay. So again, let's just do so we can recognize this, do that and that and that and that. Let's see, what does that look like? No, I wouldn't do that, but there it is. Apply, processing image. And now what you'll see inside of Lightroom is this new TIFF file gets saved, like I said, in the same destination folder as your original raw. Okay, if I go G, grid on my keyboard. Okay, I'm waiting for my file. There it is. So that was what we're working on. This is the new one. Now watch, the old image, my computer's struggling. This image, I did a few adjustments on. But my new Nick filter version, whenever it comes back from Nick filters, it's 0 rated. Why doesn't it want to show me? My computer is not liking this. D for develop. I can do this. Yeah, computer's hanging a little bit. But what you'll see is when this does pop, the monochrome version, your 0, all your sliders are back to 0. So that does help a little bit because then you can still keep going on and on. So that is a very, very quick look at Nick filters based on what we spoke about at the workshops. Now, in due course, I will be doing a few more of these in depth because I showed you just the top end of it, just a little bit, enough for you to get stuck into. Again, I would suggest you do it in Photoshop, but Lightroom can work. I just find, so if you look in my, quickly here, if I now do another adjustment, you end up with like 4 or 5 of the same image. And I've seen people then delete their raw files because they mix them up. If you have questions, there you go, guys, play with that. If you haven't got Nick filters, download off DxO. It is a free trial for 30 days. I love this. I haven't used some of the other ones like Analog Effects much, but Color Effects, Silver Effects, and Viveza are really amazing. And if you have any questions, hit me up with an email, specific questions. I can go deeper on each one and do a standalone video on the deeper functions of Nick filters. Happy shooting and good luck with all your editing. My name is Gerry. I'm from Wild. I have a good one. Bye.